Life SMP is a Minecraft survival series where players have a set number of lives and try to be the last one standing. I find this series to be interesting because you rarely can anticipate what is going to happen each week. That is because the players are all different, and the way each player goes about their season makes it interesting to see what next episode has in store for them. I thought it would be fun to do a tier list and see who the best player is. This is based on each player's performance throughout the live series and how good I think they are overall. This is based on my own opinion, so I'll try to give a good explanation for each player's placement on the tier list. If you disagree with my choices, let me know what your tier list would look like. Then let's start with F tier. The first person I'm putting into the tier list is Mumbo Jumbo. He's only ever been in Season 2, which makes him hard to judge, but the little we can say about him is that he didn't really do that much in Last Life. For being known for redstone, all he did was build a door which made it harder to get into the Southlands, and he built a sugarcane farm. That was it. I mean, there was also that trap which didn't work, but yeah. He did kill a couple of people. He got B-dubs and smallish beans while they were boogeymen, but then he got killed by another boogeyman, so it doesn't really work out. He did utilize end crystals, which they helped. They killed a few people, but those were mostly used by other people, and he's only significant because he started using them. And also as a member of the Southlands, he wasn't that great. Martin always made fun of him during his intros, and he didn't build a tower like he was supposed to. He instead built a bunker, which got locked out over time. I just don't think he's done enough to really make him worthy of going higher up in the tier list. Perhaps if he returned for another season and did better, I could put him higher, but for now I'm gonna put him in F tier. Solidarity is the only other person in F tier, and you probably know why. He's the first out every season, which is not that good. In fact, it's quite embarrassing, and he's basically been cursed at this point. Looking away from his deaths, he is one of the weaker characters in the series. Easily made fun of, bullied by Grian and Martin specifically. He doesn't really kill anyone. He only got Lizzie to a trap, which was his only intentional kill. His builds aren't that great. He generally has bad luck. He started as a yellow life in Season 2, which was very unfortunate. Basically sealed his fate right there. Yeah, he generally has a hard time. Like, he's had control of our farm animals, and then people just come in and raided it. He really is not that great, and I feel bad for him for saying so. I really hope he can do better in Season 4. Hope so. On to D tier. First off is Big B, and this is where things get a bit interesting. Unlike Mumbo's Solidarity, Big B's been quite lucky. He's found diamonds, he hasn't had to be starting on Yellow Life, he's had a pretty good soulmate, so what's his problem? Well, a bunch of things. Loyalty is one of his greatest problems. In Season 2, he was the boogeyman and he killed his closest ally, Zombie Cleo, because he didn't want to turn red while being the boogeyman. I mean, that I could understand at least, but that he could have warned Zombie Cleo ahead of time and maybe she would have understood. But he just straight up killed her and she was furious. She abandoned the team and swore to kill Big B. And she did. That's not the only betrayal he did. In Season 3, he cheated on Ren for Grian, who was his secret admirer, and Rentag was heartbroken. It was not that great. One of the other problems I find with Big B is that he doesn't do much of his own thing. He kind of just follows what others do and relies on that to try to make it by. When he does work on his own, he kind of just stands there in the corner. It just kind of gets forgotten about, to be honest. We can see this in Season 1, where he was mostly just isolated in his mountain, digging for diamonds and stuff like that. When he shows up at the end of Season 1, he's a green life because he hadn't really been seeing anyone else, and he died quickly because he was not good at PvP. His only kill was out of Cleo's, after all. I just don't think he's worthy of going higher, partially because he was a bad teammate, but also because he doesn't do that much to impact the server. The few times he does take action, the outcome doesn't turn out that great. Next up is LD Shadow Lady, also known as Lizzie. Like with Mumbo, she has only appeared in Last Life, making her a bit hard to judge. I'd say her greatest accomplishment was winning all the lives in Tango's betting game, and she used those lives to buy an enchanting table and got Ren's Undying Allegiance, but besides that, she hasn't really accomplished that much. She did have her very flammable base surrounded by trees, and as a red name, she did cover Smager and Pearl's base with lava, but that's about it. She did kill Big B glamorously with fireworks, and did get a boogie kill on Pearl without dying herself. She has that going for her. I think she was better than Big B, but I don't think she's done enough to make her worthy of going higher in D tier. Closing up D tier is Skizzleman. I'd say Skizz is on the verge of C tier, but just barely doesn't qualify. Part of the problem with him is the same as with Big B, is that he hasn't done that much to impact the server and kind of gets lost in the crowd. His accomplishments include killing Cleo in Solidarity in Season 1, which was impressive, but they were his only PvP kills, or kills in general in the series. He did found Team Best in Season 2, but he wasn't that much around, he mostly stuck around mapping the server. His builds weren't that significant. Skizz point didn't look as good as I imagined it when he described it, although he did build a tunnel to Dugwarts, which was kind of useful. I think one of his most noteworthy things was his role in the Red Army in Season 1. There he was basically the Berserker Viking, killing people, only 2 but still, it made him seem menacing. Or he foolishly charged into beat up his castle and got himself killed, ending his season. There goes his claim to fame. I feel that Skizz has a lot of potential, he just doesn't show it. That's why I'm going to leave him in D tier. Now we're on to C tier, consisting of players that are between average to pretty good. Starting off is Tango. I feel Tango's potential is varied. He's built a couple of good things, like his lava minigame in Season 1, which got a few people killed. That was the whole purpose, in fact. He built the Rocktopus, one of the most underutilized bases in Season 2, and he built the original version of the ranch, which didn't look that great. In Season 1 he had a monopoly on cows, he had most lives in Season 2 as part of a betting game he was holding, and it was an honest game, which was pretty good. And he did bring a warden up to the surface in Season 3, which was pretty impressive, but he didn't kill anyone and died to fishing rods of all things. And for every good thing Tango has done in the series, there's been something that turns against him. For example, he was shot for wearing a helmet. In Season 2 he was forced by his teammates to give away his lives. Then he was killed by the boogeyman twice. And then as a red name he blew himself up. And being paired up with Solidarity in Season 3 just kind of sealed his fate right there. I feel I have to put him in the bottom of C tier because he doesn't have the best of luck and they're just better players. Next up is Impulse. Impulse and Tango are comparable in many ways, specifically in Season 1 where they did kind of the same thing, but Impulse did it better. Impulse had a monopoly on villagers, and that gave him tons of supplies. He became the arms dealer of the servers, providing weapons for both sides of the war. That kind of influenced who won in the end. He also was very technical. He found diamonds in the swamp, and he had this fishing rod trick which helped him escape from the Reds. He's done pretty well in Season 1, but in the end beat-ups betrayed him to a clock. In the other seasons, he hasn't done that much significant. In Season 2, he was the most forgettable member of the Southlands because he didn't really talk much and just hung out. He did die to his own trap and gave Grian the final Wither Skull to summon the Wither, but aside from that, he didn't really do that much and was killed during the Wither conflict. At least in Season 3, he was paired up with B-Dubs and had a pretty good relationship with him. But aside from spreading lies and having a pool party, I don't think Impulse did that much. I think he's worthy of being C tier based on his performance in Season 1. But I don't think he can go any higher because Season 2 and 3 weren't that interesting with him, honestly. Then there's Zombie Cleo. It's a bit hard to determine where exactly I think she should go on the tier list because she's had pretty good seasons and some pretty bad seasons overall. I mean, going from second to last in Season 1 to 4th place overall in Season 3 is pretty good. She's definitely one of the more interesting characters based on her personality and the decisions that she makes in the series. From stealing Scar's llama, to spreading sugarcanes everywhere, to breaking up with her own soulmate, she's definitely done a lot. Her builds aren't that impressive. Probably the most noteworthy one was her house in Season 3 and the bridge she made between her and Smager. I'd say her worst step was when she died in Season 1 to Skizz. I mean, she foolishly attacked Ren when he was surrounded by his army. What was she expecting to happen? There was also that death in Season 3 where Martin, her own soulmate, knocked her off the cliff, but that's not her fault. Besides that, she is a pretty good player, but doesn't excel at the rate where I think she can go higher than C tier, but that's just me. At the top of C tier is BOO. Like with Cleo, he has an interesting personality and is definitely memorable. He has built various things. His castle in Season 1 was like the best defended base in that season. He was responsible for building the best castle along with Efo, and came up with the idea to have soul sand around the edges to move around. He also built a mid-century modern house and pool in Season 3, which was pretty good. Probably had one of the best soulmate relationships on the server, though he was a bad liar and Efo and Cleo were both able to sniff him out. His deaths haven't been the greatest. I mean, he died to a wither because he foolishly thought he could take it on. He was murdered by Ren at the pool party. and went red 3 times in Season 2. His skills are kind of impressive. I mean, he's betrayed probably more people than anyone else on the server, betraying Tango, Impulse, Lizzie, and Grian. I don't get exactly what his thing for clocks are, he just kind of likes them. I think he's done enough to make him worthy of being at the top of C tier, and could maybe be in B tier, but he just sort of misses the mark with a few things that the rest of B tier have. The first character in B tier is the only instance of me being biased in this tier list, as I put Efo in here. He's the only person that I actively watch for anything outside of Third Life, so that's where the bias comes in. I still think Efo has done enough to make him worthy of being in B tier. He definitely likes to cause trouble on the server, sending missiles at B-Dubs' castle, having TNT cannons, playing pranks on others, spreading false rumors, robbing people, setting fire. He once threw a potion into a crowd of players to see if the boogeyman would kill, and that happened. It seems other players fear Efo for being such an experienced Minecraft player, which explains why killing Efo surprises everyone on the server. I don't think he did the best in Season 1. He built a castle entirely out of wool, which was easily burnt down. His ender porter didn't work when he needed to, which was how Scar was able to kill him. He also died to peer pressure in the same way Tango died in the shooting range. At least the snow castle he made with B-Dubs in Season 2 wasn't as bad, but it was constantly threatened by others. Efo, like many of the other characters in B tier as we'll see, are very good at surviving. He managed to survive the Wither encounter in Season 2 against all odds and managed to survive long enough for the other greens and yellows to come and aid him and slay the Wither. And then he embarrassingly died to a creeper the next episode when the game was set to a hard mode. But still, it was pretty impressive that he survived the Wither. He hasn't killed that many people overall. I mean, he killed Scar and Mumbo as the boogeyman, and that's about it in terms of noteworthy kills. But I think Efo still plays quite well overall, and he definitely spreads chaos on the server. Regardless if I'm a bit biased, I still think Efo might be worthy of being in B tier. And then there's Rendog. In Season 1, Ren started a business Renchanting, which expanded into the kingdom of Dogwarts. After Scar threatened him and got him killed, he purposefully went red to go to war with Scar, and got a lot of people killed as a result. He did lose, but he still played incredibly well, right to the end. He carried this momentum on to Season 2, where he placed second overall, only losing to Smager, who got the edge over him in a PvP match. Interestingly, a lot of people die in the bases he's built. Dogwarts, the Shadow Tower, and the box were all subject to some form of murder, and Ren is not even safe to his own bases. Probably the most noteworthy death he had was of course when Green Stalactite killed him in Season 3, which was definitely his weakest season so far. I don't think he had that great of a relationship with his soulmate, because it seemed like he was one in charge, and Big B he didn't get to do much of his own thing, which could explain why Big B cheated on him. They did make up after they turned red and sent an army of zombies at B-Dubs, but they were second out of the series, and I honestly think that it's because of his performance in Season 3 that I'm not putting Rendog in A tier. Next up, in the Little Woods, also known as Martin. I guess you could swap places between Ren and Martin, because Ren has killed a lot more players, but Martin I think performs quite a lot better in some areas. He's probably the most vocal out of all the players for sure. He uses sound effects like creeper hisses to scare other players, or using auto-tune when speaking to create suspense. He also is a bit responsible for some of the jokes that have gone on in the series, specifically the aha joke, which definitely went a bit too far in Season 2, and he also was the first player to obtain a gold horn in Season 3. Martin definitely has influenced the series. As Ren's right-hand man in Season 1, he advertised Renchanting. As per Ren's orders, he killed Ren to turn him red, and was at his side throughout the Red Winter War. He betrayed the Southlands to join up with Ren and form the Shadow Alliance in Season 2, but I don't think he counted on how Season 3 was gonna go. Since he wasn't actively searching for a soulmate and chose to go off into the Nether with Pearl, Cleo decided she didn't want to be with her soulmate and chose to be with Smager instead. You could also say that his decision to abandon Pearl in the first session impacted her season as well, as that left her without any friends. Probably his biggest mistake that season was knocking Cleo off a cliff and killing both of them. Generally, Martin has high survivability. He was the last player to turn red in both Season 2 and 3, which is quite impressive. He hasn't had that many great bases though. Its only noteworthy base was the Broken Heart Bastion in Season 3, and all that did was drop the property value of the area. But that in no way means that Martin should be lower than B tier. Closing up B tier is Smallish Beans. Season 1 was not that interesting for Smallish Beans. He had a dead bush monopoly, raised an army of dogs, died from his house being set on fire, he changed side from the Red Army to the Pizza Alliance, and that's about it. But in Season 2, things really changed. He was the first Red Life in Season 2, mostly because he had trouble killing people as the Boogeyman. But despite being the first person on Red, he got 5th place overall, which is really impressive. As this time as a Red Life, he killed players, he set up traps, it was crazy. In Season 3 he was paired with Evo, and they definitely made a good duo considering they are both players known for causing trouble, and I think it turned out pretty well. He did probably build the most flammable base that season, but when it did burn, he burnt all the other flammable bases. He may be a bit unlucky and tends to die quite early on, but he makes up for it by being a very chaotic Red Life worthy of being at the top of B tier. Now we're on to A tier, and there are only a few players left. I'm starting off this tier with Smager, whose channel name I'm not gonna say because it's quite long. What's interesting about Smager is that he's the only player to have won 2 seasons. Technically he shared the win with his soulmate in Season 3, but regardless it's impressive that he's won twice. Putting him in A tier may be a bit odd because he's not the most involved player in the series, but he performs really well. In PvP battles he's been able to slay Martin, Grian, Renda, and Smallish Beans, which is impressive considering how good they are at fighting. His most prominent builds are of course the Scottish and the Relationship Ranch. The Scottish was continuously invaded by other players, and it was destroyed several times, but it was a pretty good base. His Relationship Ranch was probably the better of 2 ranches in Season 3, and it was built with the intention of breaking up soulmates, which was a very sneaky tactic. Him being paired with Cleo instead of his actual soulmate came with the benefit of them being able to PvP to players without both of them taking damage, which became a great defense mechanism in the long run. And he's also a pretty good guy. In Season 2, when he was chosen as the Boogeyman the second time, he chose not to kill anyone, which was actually very nice of him. He willingly went red to prevent anyone else from dying. He was also the only player to admit to being the Boogeyman immediately when he was chosen. He may not be completely worthy of being A tier, but I think he does enough to qualify for it. I think the fact that he's won twice makes him worthy of being A tier. The other A tier player is Grian. Grian is the guy who created the Life SMP series, and he does really well each time. It was impressive how long he was able to survive in Season 1, considering by the time the Red Winter War was over, he was still on his Yellow Life, and he'd made a lot of explosions that season. He created a massive TNT trap in the desert, which didn't kill anyone, but it created a massive hole. As a Red Life in Season 2, he and Smallish Beans caused a lot of trouble. They blew up houses, killed players. Green was even able to summon the Wither, which was impressive, even if the Wither only killed B-dubs. His most impressive kill was without a doubt his Stalactite kill on Rendog in Season 3. That required extreme precision, and he nailed it on the head, literally. Green is a bit unlucky, but I do think he's worthy of being in A tier, and that just leaves S tier. The 2 I've chosen to put in S tier, I've put them for very specific reasons. Their performance excels most other players, and I think that makes them worthy of being S tier. The first of the 2 is Pearlescent Moon. Pearl was a newcomer in Season 2 along with Mambo and Lizzie, although unlike the 2 of them, he was present in DoubleLife. Out of the 3 of them, she definitely performed the best, getting 4th place on her first season, which is quite impressive considering how chaotic that season was. She and Smager worked quite well together. They got the enchanting table of Smallish Beans when she killed him, and they bought 2 lives off Lizzie that way. One of the interesting things she did that season was the Green Lives Club, a club specifically designed to kill people when she was the Boogie, and she actually got Rendog with it. Sure, she was killed by Ren in the end, but she still did incredibly well for a newcomer. But that is nothing compared to her performance in DoubleLife. Due to her running off with Martin into the Nether, she didn't find her soulmate until quite late, and at that point Smage and Cleo had joined up and they broke up with their soulmates. And then Martin abandoned Pearl, which broke her heart. She expressed her heartbreak by putting on her red skin early, isolating herself in the forest. During this season, Pearl suffered from sleep deprivation, seeing as she had to get up at 5 AM to record a session. This led to Pearl going a bit crazy, and it got worse when her dog died that no one wanted to hang out with her. She began torturing herself by putting herself in powdered snow, and went around the server. Her situation became worse when she indirectly killed Ren by having him stare at an Enderman while she stole his horse, and that led to them viewing her as a demon. Pearl basically was red all season, as Green himself said. Wherever she went, chaos would follow. Efo and Smallish Beans died to a fishing rod game which she was a part of, and not long after they killed her for running off with their chest plates. And then in the final session, and the main reason I think she is worthy of S tier, is because she defied all odds and was able to take on B Dumps and Impulse, and then after that Martin and Cleo, in a 2v1 battle, and she won both of those battles. That, along with her good performance in Season 2, makes her worthy of S tier. And then there's Scar. I don't just think because of the jokes he did in his own video that he's worthy of S tier. He really is above others. He defies all expectations and does things you really wouldn't expect. After Grian accidentally blew him up as a prank in Season 1, he got Grian as his, I guess, let's say, servant, and he had to obey Scar for the rest of the season. And that definitely impacted the server. The two of them caused so much trouble, robbing people, causing destruction, starting the war. And throughout most of that, he was red. It was impressive enough that Small Expedients managed to last until Session 8 in Last Life, but Scar had to endure the Red Winter War as a Red Life. He got stuck in so many situations where he was surrounded, yet he always seemed to escape, which is really impressive. Scar has also surprisingly good marketing skills. He's been able to swindle people out of their stuff numerous times in exchange for paper and pieces of glass, and it works quite often. In Season 2, he held control of the enchanting table, one of the most valuable items on the server. He was even rich enough to start selling lives to people, which didn't turn out that great in the long run. He was even able to scare Team Best into giving him a life so that he couldn't blow up their base. He survived lava traps, did an impressive bucket clutch in Season 3 to save his pandas from being burnt. He's really quite an impressive person, and he and Green were the last Green Lives in Season 3, which was quite impressive. He's even gotten off some impressive kills. His kill on Evil, for example, was quite impressive since no one would expect Evil to be killed by Scar. And in the Red Winter War, it was Scar who slayed Ren, Doug, and Martin, making him the true king of the server. Sure, he has had some embarrassing deaths, particularly in Season 2, but I still feel, despite of his somewhat embarrassing deaths, just everything else around his character makes him worthy of being S tier. He's truly on another level compared to the others. And without him, I don't think Third Life, Last Life, Double Life, it wouldn't have been as interesting as it was. I guess in a way, Scar is the embodiment of the chaos which embodies the Life series. Well, that's the tier list. Thank you for watching the video, I hope you enjoyed it. Once again, I'd like to know how your tier list would look, how would it be different from mine, who would you put in which tier and why. And if you want to see more content like this, let me know, and I'll see you later.